Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my Father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday once again, everyone. What's going on? And welcome to your Winged Eagle Podcast for October 1st, 2022. How is it October already? But I'm happy that it's October because I am ready for the fall. I am ready for some cooler weather. This heat wave is driving me nuts. I was so excited at the restaurant last night. A customer actually asked for the heaters to be turned on because we're primarily outside. And I'm like, ooh, it's starting to happen, just finally cooling off, get some, some fall weather up in here, some pumpkin smelling shit. I'm ready for it. The heat has been brutal this summer, and I'm ready for it to cool down. So we are now in October. Big week coming up on the channel, which I'm going to fill you guys in a minute. Also, we got a big weekend coming up tonight and tomorrow as well for the watch along. And of course, a huge podcast loaded with news tonight. We're going to get into, of course, the death of Antonio Inoki, which was announced last night, right in the middle of SmackDown is when this news broke. WWE, even to their credit, interrupting SmackDown on the fly to announce his death, which is something they usually don't do in live formats. So it was really cool to see them kind of break into a SmackDown show that is already formatted out and timed out very rigidly to basically announce and pay tribute to Antonio Inoki. I thought that was really cool of WWE last night on SmackDown. And we will get into last night's show. Unfortunately, I was a little bit naughty, did not watch Rampage, so we're not going to really talk about Rampage. Did not look like it was too crazy of a show, so I don't think I missed anything, but because of the Antonio Inoki news, I worked really late last night trying to get the podcast together today. Never had a chance to really look at Rampage, so we're not going to talk about that, but we will talk about this past week's Dynamite and the huge Dynamite that we've got lined up on Wednesday for their three-year anniversary show, which is going to be really good. Of course, we've got Extreme Rules coming up 1 week from today, which is looking really promising. The card looks fantastic, and I got to give WWE credit for a show that doesn't even have their champion booked on it. It's a pretty damn solid card. I think Hell in a Cell was a lot like that too. So Extreme Rules is looking good. Every single match is a stipulation match, and that's going to be coming up next week, followed by 2 season premieres of Raw and SmackDown that I think are going to be sandwiching Extreme Rules. Friday before and then the Monday after Extreme Rules are both set as season premieres. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up in WWE, a lot of good stuff coming up in AEW. A couple of pay-per-views on the horizon, and all of the wrestling news we're going to get into. Like I said, we're going to discuss the death of Antonio Inoki. We're also going to get into the latest clues of the White Rabbit, WWE revealing more stuff last night on SmackDown, and all signs are pointing to this not only being Bray Wyatt, but likely probably going to be revealed at this point at Extreme Rules. I think the clues are becoming a little less cryptic and a little more obvious, so originally, I was of the belief that they can carry this on as long as they want. I like the teases. I like, following the breadcrumb trail to the payoff. I enjoy that stuff. I am never in any rush, and I've already seen a lot of fans like, oh, I wish they would get to it. I'm like, they just started these cute clues like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't know why everybody needs like instant gratification and instant satisfaction on everything, but with every clue, it's becoming more and more apparent that this is just simply Bray Wyatt. Who else can it be at this point? Anybody other than Bray Wyatt at this point would be a disappointment, even if it's Edge or something. I think fans would consider that a letdown. We've been wanting Bray Wyatt back. Everybody's been missing him, and now it seems like he's back in WWE with a really interesting and crazy-looking gimmick, and we'll have to see where all of this leads. But since it's becoming clearer and clearer with the clues that this is going to be Bray Wyatt, I'm now kind of changing my tune a little bit, and I might be siding with the fans who believe this thing, that we should get the payoff to this soon. Before I was kind of telling everybody to have patience, but now I kind of understand it because it's clearly Bray Wyatt. So if they stretch this out any longer, you might as well just, give it to us while we're all extremely excited and intrigued by what you're doing before it starts to lose interest. So it's probably the best idea at this point to reveal this at Extreme Rules. It should be interesting to see what form Bray Wyatt takes, and if he's going to have any tie-ins to his previous personas, or if he's going to have a group with him. We don't even know yet. All we know is White Rabbit stuff's probably going to be Bray, so we will take a look at the latest clues that they gave us last night on SmackDown, and some of the things it led to and clued us in on. And like I said, Extreme Rules could be the place, and with a shitload of extreme and stipulation matches on that show would be a perfect spot to insert Bray to help somebody win a match. So that could definitely happen at Extreme Rules. We're also going to talk about the latest on the AEW suspensions following Brawl Out. Been about a month now since all of that went down. We'll talk about the latest with Kenny the Elite and CM Punk, anything that we know there. Also, Andrade appears to be frustrated in AEW. He's been tweeting out a few making a few posts hinting at the fact that he's frustrated with his lack of TV time, his lack of matches, and overall frustration. And now he's booked next week in a career versus mask match against Dark Order's 10. We'll see. We'll talk about that. Vince McMahon apparently has a Vice documentary in the works, which is set to be released in October. What month are we in? October. That's kind of exciting. We'll talk a little bit about that. Some rumors that WWE wants to change the name of the Day 1 pay-per-view. I'm in favor of that. And we're also going to talk briefly about Seth Rollins on the Ariel Helwani show, or the Ariel Helwani interview, I should say, with Seth Rollins. I've watched about half of it, and I jotted down some pretty cool little tidbits and notes talked about in that interview that we'll get into, and we'll also talk about this week of TV. We'll kind of touch base with last week's Raw. Candice LeRae returned to WWE. We'll also preview this week's Raw, which has a ton of matches already on tap. We've got a big DX25 reunion coming up on October 10th, and whether or not Billy Gunn will be a part of that. We'll get into that as well. And like I said, we will discuss last night's SmackDown, probably pretty brief on SmackDown as well, because I only kind of glanced at the show, read the results, watched some clips, did not watch the whole thing straight through, but got a pretty good idea of what we saw on last night's SmackDown episode. And like I said, we will be previewing the entire Extreme Rules card as well. So that's on the menu for today. Thank you for sitting through that entire intro here. Let me go over to the chat and say hello to everybody that's here already. Do me a favor, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you are not a subscriber, please become one. Hit that subscribe button. We are climbing up, hopefully to get to 40,000 subscribers here pretty soon on the channel one of these days. And you can also become a member. Join the family. Click the join button below, or in the description of this video, there's a link that will take you over to the memberships, and you can become a member. And I'm going to shout out all the channel members here in just one second, along with the Patreon subscribers. And then I'm going to tell you guys what to look forward to this week, because it's kind of a crazy week with Extreme Rules falling on a Saturday. So I've got the whole week's worth of videos already laid out for you guys, including a pretty fun watch along for tomorrow that I've already decided about. So we're going to get into that as well. So let me cruise over here to the chat and just say hello to everybody that's in here already. I want to welcome all of the channel members like Tatanani, Chaz Medeiros. We have Stephen Taylor in the house, Luke McAllister. Good to see you, man. Thank you for that super chat. Hey, Greg, what's happening? Do you think AEW could pull a swerve and have Daniel Garcia attack Bryan Danielson and commit himself to the JAS again? Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. We will talk a little bit about those guys later on, based on everything we saw with Garcia and the Purple Power JAS celebration on Wednesday, and the hat and the whole deal. I feel like it kind of could go either way. I think that Danielson could pull Garcia away into the Blackpool Combat Club. Many people feel that's a better fit for Garcia, but I wouldn't mind the swerve either and seeing him stick with JAS. I think it was a really big missed opportunity for this week on Dynamite for Jericho not to tell Danielson to stop tampering with his talent. Why didn't he deliver that line? He should have, considering how much that has been in the news lately. But yeah, Luke, appreciate you being here, and I think that swerve is entirely possible. We got Zach Pelgett in the house. Isaac, member for 2 months, chiming in. My kayfabe brother. Hey, Greg, hope you're doing well. How are the cats? Cats are doing very good. Tito's laying around here somewhere right under me. And Bub has been bouncing back, man. He's still terminal. I'm still going to lose him very soon, but he's in now month number 7. Going on almost 8 months now since I was told to put him down, and he's still kicking. And this morning he ate a shitload of food, big old can of wet food, washed it down with a shit ton of treats, and he seems to be doing just fine today. So Bub is still great. Thank you for asking, Isaac. Red Raven Rucker, good to see you as well. Channel member, and George Morris chiming in with $5. Thank you, dude. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? How are your cats? Just answered that. WWE this week. 0 out of 10. What watch along are we doing tomorrow? And I survived the hurricane. I'm going to get into the hurricane in a minute as well, George. Glad you did, man. And that goes for everybody in the path of Ian. I am going to be talking about Ian in 1 second. And what are we doing for tomorrow's watch along? I already decided. No Mercy 2002. The reason I chose that show is because somebody brought it up a couple of weeks ago when we were doing a watch along, and I slacked off this week. I was kind of busy at work, and I meant to put up a members only post for you guys to offer me some suggestions. Then I would either pick the one I like or post a poll for today like I did last week for you guys to vote on. But I was really, really lazy on doing that, and then this morning I realized I never did it, and I'm like, shit. Maybe I should just pick one on my own. And we did talk about No Mercy 2002. The card is stacked. Kane and Triple H. You know, we just watched the members only. That's right. The members only watch along was the reveal, was the Triple H reveal of the Katie Vick thing. No Mercy has that match, Kane Triple H, that unified the world in the IC titles. Brock Lesnar and Undertaker's amazing Hell in the Cell matches on that card. I think we've got Rob Van Dam against Ric Flair. There's some cool matches on No Mercy 2002. So this week I decided just to pick it on my own, and that's the one we're going to do tomorrow at regular time, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, and the link is in the description below right now. So you can click that and give it a like for tomorrow, and we'll be ready to rock. Also, want to shout out Danny Allmark, another channel member. How Wheezy is here as well. Population 420, Victor Colon, Deshaun Robinson. Who else on the channel member side of things before I shout out everybody else as my chat freezes? There we go. Let me see. Danny, Deshaun, Victor, got all you guys. Also want to welcome Vast Starwind and Sam, Lil Justin, Andy, Linnell, Big J, good to see you as always. David Hosea, Khalid, David Brown, Lil Justin, I think I got you already. Yachiro, Jay Lambo, hello, good to see you. Welcome back. Ben Espinita in the house. Ben Espinoza in the house. Excuse me, Espinosa in the house. I cannot say your name, Ben. I suck. M.H. Nova, good to see you. In the chat as well, Clyde Wendell Slater, good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much. I'm going to be hitting my P.O. box this week, so if there's something in there for me, I'm sure I will find it. Thank you for all those DMs, my friend, and always, always, always good to see you in here, Clyde. Who else did I miss? Sonic Plays is in here as well. So is That Deal 79, along with Dave Sims, Stephen Harris, Lysandra Smith. Probably got everybody. Might be missing a couple. Muhammad, good to see you as well. And Mark Gallen, thank you very much for the $5. Can you believe Inoki and his reign were acknowledged? Do you think it would have been if Vince was still in charge? Good question. I was shocked as shit that they acknowledged Antonio Inoki's WWE title win. And now, 2022, I don't think it would be that big of a deal to acknowledge it. Maybe back in the 80s and when WWE was, suffering, getting their asses kicked by WCW, they might not want to acknowledge a champion that they've always recognized as having an uninterrupted reign, getting interrupted, but I think WWE has mentioned it a few times. I know it's been in a couple of magazine publications, but either way, very, very cool of them to at least acknowledge the fact that Antonio Inoki did beat Bob Backlund back in 1979 for the title, and they would run it back a couple of weeks later in a match that Backlund would win. However, there was some outside interference, and WWE's Japanese president vacated the title, and Bob would have to come back to the States. And I believe he won that title back in the Garden against like Bobby Duncombe in a strap match or some shit like that. So there was a time where Antonio Inoki actually was a former WWE champion. Very cool of WWE to bring that up last night. Andy Linnell, good to see you. And Terry Allen Jr. as well. Appreciate the $2 from you. At your restaurant, describe your job. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Okay. At my restaurant, I'm going to do a whole stream, I think, on restaurants, but I kind of do it all at my job. I was hired there as a manager, but I kind of stay on now as a floor manager, a consultant, and some nights I am a server on the floor and a manager at the same time. I actually did that last night. I lock up a lot, and I basically am just there, kind of floating around, and I get really well taken care of there. I make a lot of money there, and it is the easiest, most wonderful job in the world. I got great bosses. They love me. I love them, and it has been an excellent moneymaker for me. It's been an excellent career move for me. It's given me so much, peace and a stable job that I'm not stressed out about, that pays me well and allows me to do YouTube. They will give me anything I want. As a matter of fact, this morning I texted my boss and say, hey, by the way, I'm not going to be here next Saturday because I forgot it's Extreme Rules. So my job is fantastic, and I have 30 years of experience on Valentine's Day. This coming Valentine's Day 2023 will mark my 30 years in the business. My first day on the job was a dishwasher back in 1993. Valentine's Day is when I started, so I'm 30 years deep in restaurants. I've done it all. I've dishwashed, bussed tables, bartended, served, assistant managed, general managed, and of course what I do here is a little bit of everything. The only place I really haven't spent any time is in the back of the house, but I know my way around the front of a house, that's for damn sure. So the restaurant business is great for me, and it's really allowed me to live a life that I like. So can't say enough good things about my job. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me or my stupid fucking job. We're here to talk about wrestling. So here's what's going to happen tomorrow. Like I said, we're going to be doing No Mercy 2002 watch along. Great show we're going to be watching tomorrow night. And in terms of what we're going to see this coming week on the channel, it's going to be weird. So this coming Monday, no Raw review again. Haven't really been doing Raw reviews, but we will be doing one the following week for the season premiere. This coming Wednesday, big Dynamite 3-year anniversary show. We will be here to watch that together. So we'll be up here for the live watch along on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we'll come up here in the afternoon and do Extreme Rules predictions ahead of SmackDown. So before SmackDown airs, come here, join us on the channel, and we will predict all of Extreme Rules. And then, of course, there will be no Winged Eagle podcast next Saturday because we're going to be watching Extreme Rules. So immediately following the pay-per-view next week, we will be up here for a full show review. And then the 9th, next Sunday, 1 week from tomorrow, there will not be a watch along. We're going to have to skip next Sunday night, but I will be back the next day, Monday night, October 10th. Yeah, October 10th. That will be the season premiere of Monday Night Raw. They're doing the big DX 25-year reunion on that show. That should be really interesting, so we will be up here for a Raw review that night. So next week, Wednesday, Dynamite Watch-Along, Friday predictions, Saturday, Extreme Rules review, and then again the following Monday for a Raw review. That's going to be on tap. I will work on getting all those links posted here in the next day or two, so they're up on the channel just waiting for you to join, so keep a lookout for that. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's No Mercy Watch-Along. I also want to thank all of the channel members that have joined over the last couple of months. We started the memberships in August, and we had a bunch of people sign on already, and we've already knocked out one members-only watch-along with more to come. I got to start thinking about which one to do this month, and probably in November we're going to do a big Q&A, so I will be making posts for that. Q&A, and the members, it's going to be, the Q&A will be open to everybody, but the members are going to be the ones that are going to get priority on the questions. So all that stuff will be coming soon. And I want to thank Ian Dunn, Longboard, Kevin, Sam Piboon, Jeff McMahon, Deshaun Robinson, Mikey Too Cool, Luke McAllister, Tar Brehan, Damon Smith, Zelius Ward, William, Queasy, Bo Kavlovic, Al Ramos Pro, Zach H., Chaz Medeiros, Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Danny Allmark, Jimmy Anderson, C. Mac, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, How Wheezy, Spaz Phoenix, Ronnie, Nicole Lensing, Marcus the Entertainer, Nikita Abalakin, Divine Ricks, Zane G, Chris Barrera, Michael Cuomo, John J.E. Dennett, Tatanani, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Max Pokebra 27, Spectra, Zach Palgett, Red Raven Rucker, Reese Jones, Victor Colon, Isaac, George Morris, Stephen Taylor, Population 420, and JJ Leg. Thank you very much for being channel members, and I want to give an extra shout out and special love to all of my Shoot Brothers, the top tiered members on the channel: How Wheezy, Divine Ricks, Michael Cuomo, Nick Musser, Spectra, Reese Jones, Victor Colon, and George Morris. Thank you guys very much for your very generous monthly memberships. Also, cruising over to the Patreon page for those of you who like to support over there. I want to thank Zach Palgett, Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, again, Naveed, and Blake Moran. Thank you to everybody who supports on Patreon. And when I look at those lifetime totals for some of you, it's incredible. And a lot of you support on both. So I just cannot thank you enough for helping the channel, continue on, because it is not free to do this. And you guys really, really help me keep the channel moving and keep it going. And we've been at this now for nearly 13 years. Pretty fucking crazy. Anyway, that should do it for all of the shout outs and all of that stuff. Thank you for sitting through that. I also want to send everybody well wishes, positive vibes to those of you, my listeners, and anybody out there really who may have been in the path of Hurricane Ian that absolutely blistered Florida last week, hit and made landfall, I believe, as a Category 4. That's gnarly. I used to live right in Cane Lane, right in Hurricane Alley, the beaches of North Carolina, where hurricanes came up and smashed us all the time. And I've taken every single category a direct hit. I've taken a tropical storm, Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4. I think the only thing I haven't experienced is a Cat 5, and even if there was a Cat 5, it wasn't a Cat 5 by the time it got to us. But I've experienced very dangerous and very crazy hurricanes. I've had property damage. I've been flooded. I've lost power for weeks. I've been trapped in my apartment while the entire first floor was underwater. I've experienced everything you could possibly experience in hurricanes. So those of you who were in the path of this thing or may have lost, a home, lost property, or had any damage, or maybe even, got injured or lost a loved one or experienced a death or any sort of trauma related to Hurricane Ian, I know what you're going through, and I, just wish you all the best. And I hope everybody was able to stay safe through that and ride it out with minimal damage. I know in the areas that took the eye of the storm, those are going to be, it's going to be years until they're rebuilt. I know that from firsthand experience, going through hurricanes myself. One of them actually hit my old hometown just a couple years ago in Wilmington. Hurricane blew through, and I had a few friends that were displaced from their homes for weeks, and I'll never forget the image of I-40. It's basically an interstate that'll take you all the way out here to California. You can take it all the way from Wilmington here to California, but right on I-40, there's this iconic image because all the water, just rose, and so all the highways were underwater. Well, when the water receded, the entire highway is just lined with dead fish. And it was just like a mile away from where I used to live. I was blown away and very, very grateful that I was living here when all that went down. So if you were in the path of Hurricane Ian, all the best to you. Hope you were able to survive that and avoid any, serious damage to yourself, to your loved ones, to your property, to your home, anything like that. It's always just super scary. Natural disasters are no joke. And of course, that storm went all the way up through Florida, hit Georgia, hit South Carolina, and even hit North Carolina. I talked to some of my friends in Wilmington just the other day who said that the hurricane only gave them some rain, a little bit of wind, but when I was talking to them, they said the sun was even popping out. So looked like the coast of North Carolina was spared, but a lot of states were affected by that, and there's going to be damage and repairs going on for the foreseeable future, and many, many, many billions of dollars in damage. So that's what hurricanes will do. It's a shame. So anyway, all the best to everybody who may have been affected by that hurricane. And if you're here watching us, I'm glad you're here. There was, I forget the gentleman's name now. If you're in the chat, show yourself. Somebody was he in the chat on Sunday? I forgot when it was. Somebody was just recently in the chat. It might have been Wednesday night during the watch along. That's what I think it was. I think it was during the AEW live reaction. Somebody was chiming in saying they were right in the path of the biggest part of the storm, and they were just using their phone to hang out in the chat. So I was worried for you. Hopefully you made it out okay and everything was good there. So yeah, the hurricane was nuts and absolutely no joke. So that should take care of the pleasantries, the shout outs, the Hurricane Ians, and let you guys know what to expect on the channel. Just to recap, watch along No Mercy 2002 tomorrow night, live reaction of AEW Dynamite this coming Wednesday, Extreme Rules predictions this coming Friday, Extreme Rules review 1 week from today, and 1 week from this Monday, October 10th, we will be here for a Raw review to talk about the season premiere and the DX25 reunion and all that stuff. So that's what's coming on tap on the channel, along with some mic drops sprinkled in throughout the week, I'm sure. So keep that in mind as we go forward. Also, if you guys could continue thumbing up the like button, I would appreciate it. Hit me with the likes, and I will be eternally grateful. So with that being said, I guess we should start getting into the wrestling news, and we definitely need to start with Antonio Inoki. So it was announced last night, right in the middle of SmackDown. I think they were halfway through the second hour or something like that. I was at work, and it was reported that Antonio Inoki had passed away at age 79. Antonio Inoki, when I was writing down notes for this, and I'm like, well, when somebody like this passes away, where do you start? Where do you start with somebody like Antonio Inoki? There's not even words in the English language or the Japanese language that can accurately describe how influential this man was. I mean, you have influential wrestlers in wrestling. Like I've always mentioned, Rey Mysterio, I believe, may be the most influential. There's influential, and then there's influ-fucking-wential and influential. And that's what Antonio Inoki was. And he had such a following and a presence in Japan, second only to Ricky Dozan in Japan, second biggest star ever there. He was, many people, I know Meltzer would say this, but probably a lot of others as well, would say that Antonio Inoki was bigger in Japan than Hogan was in the United States. I personally believe that. Some people don't. I do. That's how big of a star he was. He was the founder of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was the founder of Strong Style. He had a big hand in the creation of MMA in general. And he deserves a lot of credit for that, for his influence, even though, Inokiism damn near ruined New Japan as well. And a lot of Antonio Inoki's beliefs weren't all good and led to some very, very bad things. But, you're never going to have somebody that influential that's going to be 100% perfect across the board anyway. So his reach, his influence, what he meant to Japanese wrestling, to New Japan, to strong style is, going to be forever solidified as one of the greatest and biggest, most pivotal figures in pro wrestling ever is Antonio Inoki. Legendary matches with the biggest stars in the world, lots of crossover appeal. And of course, once he started getting into, the boxing matches and the Muhammad Ali stuff and the exhibitions, it kind of took his status into a completely different direction. So, like I said last night, WWE interrupting SmackDown to actually announce this death, I thought was really cool of them to do, because I could see maybe Cole mentioning something in the middle of a match. I could see Triple H on headset, "Hey, Cole, when there's a dead spot, let's try to talk about Inoki a little bit since we just found out he died." For them to interrupt their script live, call an audible here, and shave, a minute off of something. I don't know where they took this time from, who got less time in a match, or what promo they scrapped or whatever. But for them to actually, go to the put the camera on the commentary booth and allow Cole and Corey Graves to talk about it, even putting together a graphic real quick about his death, I thought was just really cool of WWE to do that instead of waiting and then doing something on Monday. They made sure to acknowledge it because of what a large figure he was. And this is a big death, guys. When it comes to wrestling deaths, this is a big one. This is a real, real big one. This is going to be up there with when Vince passes away. This is a major, major wrestling figure that is lost here at age 79. And what a year, man. I mean, we had all within the course of 2022 here. We thought 2020 was nuts. Here in 2022, we have the Vince McMahon scandal breaking that leads to Vince. Well, actually, we should start all the way back at the beginning with Cody, leaving AEW. That was crazy. Then Vince McMahon scandal breaks. Then Vince McMahon retires from WWE, and you have this whole regime change. AEW, who's firing on all cylinders, completely implodes with their champion getting in a fist fight with executives and leaving the company, resulting in suspensions and championship, title vacations, and is that a word, vacations, or vacating titles and stripping champions of titles, and morale going down the shitter, wrestlers being frustrated and unhappy. And it's like, what the hell is happening? And now we get hit with this very major death, Antonio Inoki passing away. It was just a very huge deal. And like we talked about earlier, it was really cool of WWE to actually acknowledge that Antonio Inoki did win the WWE title from Bob Backlund in 1979. It was a match in Japan where he beat Bob Backlund for it. Just a couple of weeks later, they would have a rematch that Bob Backlund would win, but there was some interference in that match. And the Japanese WWE commissioner or whatever declared the match a no contest and vacated the title. And it would take Bob Backlund coming back here to the States, going back to Madison Square Garden, and facing Bobby Duncum for that championship. It was either a death match or a strap match. I can't remember which one. And he ended up winning the title back, basically. And when you look in the record books, it's a championship run that WWE does not acknowledge and never really did. And they've always considered Bob Backlund's run as an uninterrupted run. So anytime WWE brings that up, I think it's very cool, and I thought it was cool that they did that last night. But Antonio Inoki, just on the wrestling side of things, he had so many amazing and legendary matchups. Not all of them were good moments either. I mean, Antonio Inoki was a guy that would do plenty of jobs. Vader absolutely destroyed him in 1987. He had tons of matches with Andre the Giant, won most of them too. Not all of them, but won most of them. And he always seemed like a guy who would do business but was also no nonsense. Some of those Andre matches, even when Andre was a babyface, seeing Andre get mad, see Andre storm away from the ring pissed off, because when you go to Japan, heel and babyface, all that stuff's going to be much, much different than here in the States. But the matches with Andre were always really fun and really interesting to watch. And I remember as a kid, the first time seeing a few of them in magazines, I saw one when Andre still had the long hair, probably from the 70s. I think the first match they had was 75 or 76, 77, somewhere in there. And just being amazed of, the Andre that I know on TV, looking so different, looking so thin and slim with long hair, facing Antonio Inoki in Japan. I didn't know what to make of all that. And they had a million matches together. Antonio Inoki worked with Ric Flair He was in WCW a few times when WCW was cooking in the 90s. And, of course, they did the big Collision in Korea event that Antonio Inoki was a big part of putting together. And he had, you know, it's so weird with Antonio Inoki because when I said earlier, I'm like, I don't know really where to start with this guy. Do I start with his wrestling stuff? Do I start with his, his strong style stuff? Do I talk about his political stuff? What do we get into here? He's been spread out so far and done so many things with so many different promotions, so many different guys, so many different stars, and had so many different crossovers and stuff that he really was just a worldwide celebrity, especially in Japan. He had that jawline, that big chin. He just looked like $1 million. He was tough as fucking nails, and just a really, really, really major star over there and in the world, really, but specifically in Japan. Now, not everything with Antonio Inoki was good, because Antonio Inoki was, like I said, he was of the belief that strong style was the best and most efficient and most dangerous and effective form of martial arts. He believed that was the top form of martial arts. He believed that strong style could beat any other form of martial art. Now, strong style has its place, but, the belief that it was better than boxing or jiu-jitsu or any of this stuff is basically the underbelly and the ugly side of Inokiism, and how that really did damage in a lot of ways the company that he founded, New Japan. Luckily, they were able to survive all of this, but with Inoki and doing these crossovers, the match with Muhammad Ali was just this big publicity stunt joke. Have you guys ever seen that match? It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's just, it was bizarre because I believe, if I remember the story right, I believe Muhammad Ali was paid to come do a job for Inoki, because even though Inoki wanted everything to be real and stiff and competitive, these outcomes still were predetermined. Muhammad Ali deciding that he didn't want to do the job anymore once his people were like, what are you doing? And then they agreed to do some sort of an exhibition match that handcuffed Inoki a little bit. There was rules, certain things he couldn't do, certain things that Muhammad Ali could do or couldn't do. But basically, Antonio Inoki, I think, was just too scared to square up with him, and he just laid on his back because kicks were legal. So he laid on his back and just started kicking the shit out of Muhammad Ali, and the entire 19-round fight took place with Antonio Inoki laying on his back. So it's not all good. Some of the stuff, when he tried to do a lot of this crossover stuff or these exhibitions, even though it was hyped up a lot, and there was a lot of people interested in it, and maybe even a lot of people watching it. I think 60 million people, something like that, watched the Muhammad Ali Antonio Inoki fight. But when it's such a ridiculously enormous letdown, that can really harm. That can really harm the event and future exhibitions like this in the future. So combined with, the negative aspects of Inokiism and a lot of his various political controversies, Antonio Inoki put together that whole World Peace Festival Collision in Korea thing mostly as a political stunt. He's been linked to arms deals and Yakuza stuff and shit like that. So he's had a lot of the controversies attached to his name as well, but he still, despite all of that, has just maintained the utmost respect in Japan and in the wrestling world, and with the outpouring of love and support and well wishes and memories of Antonio Inoki that we've seen since the announcement of his death last night on social media. And everybody that might have had a run-in with him or have spoken to him or got to meet him, sharing stories of what he was like and the presence that he had is really, really cool to read, and was absolute joy to read a lot of the tributes to Antonio Inoki. So this is a very, very big one. If you want to learn about him, there are books and books and books written about this man. I'm touching on literally 6.5% of his life here, just talking about some of the big moments and some of the stuff he was responsible for and some of the things he did, but it goes so much deeper than that. I'm not an Antonio Inoki expert by any means. I'm well aware of him, but I didn't become really a Inoki savvy until the 90s. I wasn't even really truly sure how big of a star he really was until I started to learn about him and, watching documentaries or reading about him or reading various articles or seeing some of the matches he was in, watching stuff on YouTube, and you just see his entire body of work and how vast it is and how far his reach stretches and how well known of a figure he was. This is a huge deal. a very, very large death in professional wrestling. So it's one that I felt like we had to spend some time on. We had to discuss him and pay tribute to him as best we could, because he was a major, major wrestling figure. I remember I never saw this match ever. I never was aware of it until just a few years ago. There's the now famous match with Antonio Inoki against the Great Antonio. And I remember I first saw this just a few years ago. Never knew this match took place ever. And I know Inoki had been in some shoots before, but I wasn't even aware of this one. And I came across it when it was the comedian. It's the comedian Bill Burr. I guess he had watched this, and he was talking about it, and somebody had put the video up while Bill was talking and describing how Antonio Inoki got pissed at Great Antonio for not cooperating in the match. And this is what happens when you have these weird exhibitions. The Great Antonio was a big strong man. He like lifted and pulled trucks and shit like that. And I think it was another one of these, weird crossover things where this guy had dabbled in wrestling a little bit, but he wasn't about to sell for Inoki or cooperate with Inoki. And Inoki just got pissed and just started slapping him and just beat the shit out of him, kicked him in the face. And it was beautiful. And listening to Bill Burr narrate what was going on was the funniest shit I've ever seen. And I'd only seen this maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Was the first time I'd ever seen the match with Great Antonio. So if you've never seen it, look it up. It's pretty damn funny. Antonio Inoki also, I don't remember what year, but I know he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. You guys have to fill me in on the year there. Maybe 2017, maybe 16, maybe even 18. Feels like it's kind of recent, but I could be way off on the year there. Maybe it was way back when, but I do know that he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame as well. I'm just kind of blanking on the year, but he definitely left his mark in wrestling. He's going to be sorely missed, and he's always going to be greatly remembered in the upcoming days. It'll be interesting to see what sort of tributes they do, perhaps in Japan. I don't know if we're going to see any footage of his funeral or any sort of celebrations of life that might be dedicated to him. We saw what England did for the Queen. I'm not saying he's going to have something like that, but it will be interesting to see how his death is handled in Japan and what sort of, tributes we see. And if we do, see any footage of, legends gathering to pay tribute to him or whatever. But it was... I think pretty monumental day that'll go down as a major loss for professional wrestling. Antonio Inoki, dead at age 79. Rest in peace. Pretty crazy. But yeah, if you guys have any memories of, it was way back in 2010. What did I say, 2018? 2010. Damn, that's when it was. Well, that's good. He should go in. It's about time. I don't really mind when people who, weren't in WWE per se get inducted, because it's nice to see them recognized when they otherwise wouldn't be, at least for American fans, WWE fans. So I usually don't have any issue with that. And it's always a good way for fans to learn about them too, in a lot of ways. Sam, don't try to go Carney comedy on him. He don't like that. Yeah, he was no nonsense. There's so many great clips too floating around that I've seen on social media, specifically on Twitter. I want to say it might have been Bix and Span. Somebody tweeted out the great footage about 20 years ago in Japan. He stood in the ring and they lined up just people, just gobs of people, one at a time. I saw a couple women coming up there. And I guess he just open hand slapped hundreds of people in a row. They just lined up, got in the ring, and took one slap in the face from him, and it was basically him transferring his power, his fighting power, into these people. And you'd go up and you'd take a slap from Antonio Inoki, and you would be as great of a fighter as he was. I think I would just like to say that I did it. I'm not trying to get slapped in the face, but it would be kind of cool just to stand in the ring face to face with him and have him slap you. That's a memory that'll last forever. You know what I'm saying? So really good stuff, and really good memories and matches and moments of Antonio Inoki's career is all over social media right now, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and I'm sure TikTok and whatever else. So you can find lots of stuff. Go enjoy some Antonio Inoki memories. There's countless of them. So we need to move on from that, though, because we have lots of other stuff to talk about, but we could not even begin today's podcast without acknowledging Antonio Inoki. I want to thank Tomas Aridia for the $2. Does your girlfriend participate in RVD activities with you. Yes, we frog splash each other all the time, and she's really good at the Van Terminator. Girl can pull it off, I tell you. You got 5 more up there from you as well, Tomas. Thank you. Hey, Greg, currently in line to meet Penta. Nice. In Roseville right now. Met Phoenix last year and excited to meet Penta. That's awesome, dude. Let us know how that goes. Hopefully you are meeting him as we speak. Mark Gallen, appreciate $10 from you. Do you believe Chris Jericho destroying Ring of Honor is him believing that it builds people like CM Punk, pompous and entitled, and might return to his savior gimmick? That it builds people like CM Punk. You mean you're talking about maybe CM Punk coming back or something? I think Chris Jericho doing the destroying Ring of Honor gimmick is a way, yes, for somebody to come in and put Jericho in his place and probably take that title from him. The fact that Jericho is referencing destroying Ring of Honor, mentioning that he wants to beat and destroy every former Ring of Honor champion, that makes me think that whoever beats him is going to be somebody with Ring of Honor ties. And I know he just had a couple of matches with Danielson. Won one, lost one. So maybe Danielson will be the guy to beat Jericho for the title. I'd be perfectly fine with that. I'd also be perfectly fine with Claudio regaining the belt back from him. I'm not sure really where they're going there, but I'm not too concerned with Jericho trashing Ring of Honor on the mic. This is all done to elevate Ring of Honor. I mean, that's what they're trying to do here. Jericho's going to be a big name now that Ring of Honor title lineage is attached to. And when he can drop that belt and put somebody over, that should make a really big moment for Ring of Honor, especially if they do that on, their next big pay-per-view or whenever they can get some sort of a streaming deal or whenever they can get moving on their own. That's when I would pencil in Jericho defending the title and dropping it. So we'll see where that ends up going, but I'm liking the Jericho stuff. Michael Kumo, member for 2 months. Appreciate that, shoot brother. Inoki counts as a former WWF champion to me. He deserves a queen-like funeral. Yeah, I mean, he counts as a former WWE champion for me as well. I mean, if you win the WWE title, then you win the WWE title. You can't just pretend shit didn't happen, you know what I mean? So there's a few matches like that, though, that WWE and other promotions as well have not acknowledged, because back then there was so much more, crossover, and guys were working together all the time. There's a match, I believe, in Japan that's WWE champion Bob Backlund against NWA champion Ric Flair. That match exists, and I'm pretty sure that happened in Japan too. So you could find some really great hidden gems back in the 70s and stuff. There were some guys wrestling each other and some cross promotion there that you would never expect to see in modern times or anything in the 90s or the 2000s. For sure. So great shit to be had back then and to be seen back then. But we got to get into stuff here. We are 47 minutes into this podcast, and we have not even talked about the White Rabbit yet. So we need to discuss more about the White Rabbit. WWE revealed more clues on last night's SmackDown, some more QR code stuff. And this is courtesy of Sean Ross Sapp's Twitter, because I did not see all of the SmackDown stuff last night. And like I said, I am not going to be, sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for these clues to come so I can immediately figure it out. People have got this shit figured out within seconds. They're already looking up source codes and looking up, stuff, and and all of this information is out literally within seconds after these little clues are revealed. So I just pulled some of this info off of Sean's Twitter page from last night. If you zoom on the newest clue, there's a White Rabbit logo on the bottom of the site. The file name is TSS10E6, which is The Simpsons Season 10, Episode 6. White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane is in that episode. In the file name of the White Rabbit image, there's a phone number, 855-489-5099. It plays a message backwards. When played in reverse, it says, Bravo, Echo, Lima, Alpha, India, Romero. I am the way into the city of woe. I am the way into eternal sorrow. Now, Bravo, Echo, Lima, Alpha, India, Romero spells Bel Air. Bel Air. That's weird. Don't know what that means. I don't think Bianca is the White Rabbit. I seriously doubt it. Also, during SmackDown last night, behind the commentary table, but right behind Michael Cole and Corey Graves, a big sign appears being held up by a fan that says, Revel in who you are. And it took only seconds for fans to search that and dig up a 3-year-old tweet from Bray Wyatt that said the exact same thing. Revel in who you are, and had some weird Fiend artwork. Now, this would have been October of 2019, so that's when the Fiend was doing stuff. He was about to have that shitty Hell in the Cell match with Seth Rollins. Maybe he already had it. And once that was made apparent, all the other stuff we saw, there was another image on the clues last night that had like Little Red Riding Hood and a wolf or something, or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know what's going on. So basically, it's like the Firefly Funhouse characters are coming to life. We've seen the pig, and now we've seen, maybe, we got definitely seen shades of Huskus and the Buzzard and all this stuff. So, with each one of these really bizarre clues, at this point, I just can't see anybody else other than Bray Wyatt. Internally, that's the belief amongst the talent. WWE's remaining very tight-lipped about the creative plans. Even the creative team is basically largely hands-off in all this, according to the reports. So if the creative team is not involved here, then there you go. It's definitely Bray Wyatt. With all of the talk, Triple H, even when he did the interview with Ariel Helwani, talked about the creative mind of Bray Wyatt and how working with someone that creative, you got to make sure that you can take that creativity and channel it and put it on and present it on TV in a way that works. And if you're not sure how to do that or whatever, or this is a brand new person, seems like the creative team would be heavily involved in trying to reveal and debut this person in the best way possible. And the fact that they're kind of largely not a part of this just points to more evidence that this is Bray Wyatt faux show. So I believe as well, now that we've heard the reports, that not only will this be Bray Wyatt, but it looks like the reveal and the debut will come at Extreme Rules 1 week from today. Hopefully we will get that answered. If we do not see Bray Wyatt in any form, I think that's going to be kind of disappointing. When you look at the matches that we have on the card, every single match is a stipulation match. You've got Cross and Drew McIntyre. You've got Riddle and Rollins, and Edge and Finn Balor. I think it's got to be one of those three. If Wyatt is going to show up anywhere and be a factor in any match at Extreme Rules, it's got to be one of those. I can't see him interfering in any of the women's matches, and I don't think he's going to have anything to do with the Brawling Brutes and Imperium either. So if Wyatt is going to cost somebody the match, this could be the place for it. Might be a good way to give Cross a victory over McIntyre without really beating McIntyre. Could also have the same effect with Finn Balor beating Edge. Big push, apparently, to coming for Finn Balor if WrestleVotes is to be believed, who tweeted out this week that he's in line for a big push. So I can see Finn Balor getting the win over Edge in that I Quit match. How cool would it be if Bray Wyatt appeared, and I don't know if maybe Beth Phoenix is going to be in the house for that. Maybe she'll be there. And even if the Fiend has nothing to do with this match, if Beth Phoenix is there, I could see Judgment Day grabbing her, threaten to tear her arms off unless Edge says I quit. So I can kind of see a finish like that happening. But you could also tie in Bray Wyatt to that as well. Or he could have nothing to do with any of those matches, and maybe just at the end of the show, he just shows up and he's in the middle of the ring. Holy shit, is that Bray Wyatt? Maybe he's wearing something crazy. Show goes off the air, fade to black, and we got to wait 2 days until Monday Night Raw to find out what the hell that was about. So maybe they could do something like that, but I definitely believe wholeheartedly at this point the White Rabbit is Bray Wyatt, and it's going to be really interesting to see what he looks like, what his gimmick is going to be like, if he's going to have different basically different aspects of his character like the Fiend did, Funhouse Bray, Crazy Bray, and then Monster Bray, or if he's going to be basically just one way, if the Firefly Funhouse is going to come back, if the Fiend is going to come back, or if this is a completely new gimmick. Because I got to tell you, I am really excited at the possibility and the prospect of Bray Wyatt coming down to the ring to White Rabbit. That's just such a cool sounding song. And if WWE can, I don't know if they can spice it up or if they can loop it. And when you get to that part at the end of the song, feed your head, and maybe you can loop it a few times and you can get the audience doing a sing-along. You get 20,000 people, feed your head. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be awesome. It's going to be creepy. If you just hear the Jefferson Airplane song with Wyatt walking quietly down the aisle, whether he's got a lantern or he's got his fucking head or a mask on or whatever, and he's just coming out to that song, that's going to be an unbelievable presentation. And he hits a home run with the presentations. Not everything they do with Bray Wyatt and the execution is always great, but the Wyatt family, the presentation of that was so awesome. The music, the lantern, the entrance, the Fiend was the same thing. And I have a feeling here, based on how much time and energy and effort and thought seems to be put into this White Rabbit gimmick, I think it's going to be pretty badass when it finally debuts. And if WWE's willing to spend money to license music, that means they must be taking this pretty seriously, and you're not going to purchase the rights to a Jefferson Airplane song to bring in fucking Gable Steveson. This is probably going to be Bray Wyatt. I can't see it being anyone else at this point unless they do some crazy swerve and there's some sort of last-minute thing here that reveals this to be Edge. It might be a good way for him to beat Finn Balor, maybe retake control of Judgment Day, kick him out, and then Balor gets a babyface push. That's really pushing it. I know it's probably not going to be that, but I'm just trying to analyze all options. At this point, for it not to be Bray Wyatt, I think the fans will be pissed. If it ain't Wyatt, we gonna riot. That's the way I look at it. But the only person, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago as well, the only person I think the fans would even think about accepting as the White Rabbit other than Wyatt would be Edge. If there was a way, but then you'd be treading into it doesn't make sense territory, because Edge was in Judgment Day, got booted out, then went back to being regular babyface Edge right after, just weeks removed from calling us all inbred morons. And now they're going to turn him again, really throwing the fans off balance a little bit. And Edge has said himself last time they were in Toronto that he wants to retire there next summer. So if you're putting Edge now in another gimmick, and now he's going to be a bad guy again, he's got to run this gimmick, do this angle, wrap it up, turn back babyface again, and retire all within, 11 months' time. I don't think there's time to do that. So I think it's Bray Wyatt. It has to be Bray Wyatt. So the next time a QR code flashes on the screen, I'm not going to be rushing to look it up. I don't care. It's Bray Wyatt. Show us some goofy clues. I like some of the stuff that you can kind of find, and some of the things they're doing to throw you off, like that shit spelled out Bel Air. And then last week, or maybe it was on Monday night. I think it was on Monday night, because we didn't talk about that. I wasn't up here on Monday night. Monday night, the clues, when you looked at the source code of whatever the clue was on Monday, in the text was written the first two lines of Aleister Black's theme. No man is ever truly good. No man is ever truly evil. That was cool. And I'm like, right after Malachi Black, Malachi Black posts on Instagram Live from his car, getting pissed off about everybody talking about his life, and he's not he's not leaving AEW, and he says he's coming back to AEW, but we had already heard, and he himself out of his own mouth admitted that he had asked for his release. WWE kind of leaning into those rumors really got the fans excited. So when Malachi made that video, basically kind of angry and calling people out for misreporting his situation, which I don't think they misreported anything, and talking about how, and they're coming out and saying this is confirmed. I'm like, the only person that's confirmed anything, Malachi, is you. We want what's best for Malachi, especially if he's dealing with mental health issues or whatnot. None of that is anybody's business except his. But he has made it known more than once on a few occasions that he has been taking time off to deal with a few things, to deal with things in his life, to deal with things in his relationship. He's fine. He's not in any trauma or turmoil, but he just needs some time to rebalance, regroup, or do whatever he needs to do to maintain his good mental health. And that's where his privacy needs to be respected. But in terms of what he was complaining about, I know I'm getting a little off subject here. In terms of what he was complaining about, I didn't really see that. I know there's a lot of dirt sheets out there, and there's a lot of terrible websites that just haphazardly report everything and don't even care, reckless speculation, and sometimes even reporting things as fact that aren't. But people that I was listening to about Malachi Black's situation, I saw no irresponsible reporting from anyone I get my news from regarding his situation. Not saying that there wasn't some out there, but in terms of what I was reading, I mean, it was he himself said, yes, I asked for my release. And then in his video, got mad for people misreporting him asking for his release. And that just kind of confused me because I'm like, well, dude, you said it. So all they're doing is just reporting what you said. I can understand talent's frustration with websites and journalists and maybe reading something about their situation that is completely untrue. I'm sure it happens all the time. I get their frustration. But there were things here that was said by Malachi Black himself and Tony Khan, both of which were right out of their mouths. So those are the two best sources to get that information from as far as I'm concerned. So Malachi did say that he is coming back to AEW now. So it was assumed or believed anyway, not assumed, but it was believed that he was given a conditional release. This was never reported as fact. Every time I read about his conditional release, I read, and I quote, "It is of the belief that he got his conditional release." Nothing was confirmed. It was mostly speculation. It was mostly what the sources thought or were told or whatever. Not a big deal either way, but I never read anything that confirmed a single thing about Malachi Black at all. So I feel bad that he had to go through this. I feel bad that he has to deal with this frustration and this bullshit that he shouldn't have to deal with. He should be focusing on himself and his life and getting himself focused and getting himself back in wrestling or whatever, and having to take a detour here to deal with that. I understand the frustration totally, but it also was a little bit he was contradicting himself a little bit because he had just released a statement not long ago that said he asked for his release. So it sounds like things are smoothed over with AEW. Apparently he is going to return there because apparently Tony Khan is not going to be releasing anyone. So I was wondering if, considering how angry Malachi Black seemed in that point, that was the whole point of me bringing him up, how mad he seemed in that Instagram live video. Do you think he was pissed off at all at WWE for putting the lyrics of his song in a Bray Wyatt clue? Because all that did was get the fans more excited, and they're saying, holy shit, Aleister Black is coming back to WWE, and that just feeds into them saying, oh, he got his AEW release. It's probably the fans and just people on Twitter saying the shit that's probably upsetting Malachi Black more than anything. But I think WWE needs to shoulder some of that blame as well and some of that responsibility if they're playing into these rumors and they know what's going on with Malachi Black. Apparently Triple H, or he was one of the people contacted that were under contract about coming back. And of course, we all know he kind of does want to leave. His wife is in WWE, but Tony Khan apparently isn't releasing anybody. So for WWE to put the lyrics to his song in there, all that's going to do is fuel more speculation and add to the misery of Malachi Black. So I don't know if he's angry at WWE in any way for posting some of that stuff. So that was what all happened on Monday. And then of course we had more clues last night. And even though they're kind of throwing us off the trail a little bit, especially at the beginning, where they were making it seem like it could be anybody. Edge kind of did that too when we started seeing the vignettes for Edge with the John Cena stuff and the Eddie Guerrero stuff. And, you just started putting two and two together. So the fact that they're putting something like Belair, maybe hinting that it could be Bianca Belair, and Aleister Black's theme song lyrics in all of these clues is a fun way to throw the fans off the trail a little bit. But, like I said, I think at the end of the day, we're all of the agreement that this is going to be Bray Wyatt, and there's really no other way around it. It's got to be him at this point. So, we will see at Extreme Rules 1 week from tonight. Hopefully we will get the final reveal. And I think it would be really awesome if next week on Raw and SmackDown, maybe on Raw, you get one more big clue, one more QR code that takes you to SmackDown. You're going to want to tune into SmackDown. You're going to want to tune into SmackDown. Just make something that drives the fans to SmackDown. Then on SmackDown, when the rating's going to be much higher than it is on Raw anyway, because they don't have to go head-to-head with Monday Night Football, then you do another clue and you basically just reveal and just say tomorrow. Maybe it's another game of Hangman or whatever the hell the first clues were doing, and it just reveals some message that just says tomorrow. And that way we know when we tune into the PLE on Saturday, we're going to see Bray Wyatt. That should really boost interest because we've seen what the White Rabbit clues have done to the ratings. They've really helped. SmackDown got a couple little boosts from that. So I think the same can be said with Extreme Rules. I think if you let it be known on SmackDown that whoever the White Rabbit is going to be revealed at Extreme Rules, that's the way I would do it. I would do it that way instead of making the fans wonder if we're going to see anything. It might be more fun just to let them know, like, okay, Extreme Rules is going to be it. And that way you maximize viewership for that. And us at home know that we're in for something pretty fun. So you guys can let me know if you agree with that or not. But I kind of feel like on Friday, after the clues on Monday, this coming Monday, and then clues again next week on Friday, I think it should reveal that Extreme Rules will be the place for the White Rabbit to be revealed. Because like I said, if they keep going with this for too long, fans will grow tired of it. I feel like a lot of people already are, which I think is ridiculous, but that's just kind of the way fans operate. So it looks like Extreme Rules will be the place for the White Rabbit, and we'll keep our eye on that this week. We should also talk about Andrade. I just mentioned him a little while ago because there are some AEW frustrations. Now, first of all, we should backtrack a little bit and mention the latest on the AEW suspensions. So we're about a month removed now from Brawl Out, where, of course, CM Punk went on the big rant in the scrum that led to a physical altercation with all members of the Elite that resulted in lots of suspensions and title strippings across the board. There has not been a lot of news about this in the last few weeks. We haven't heard anything new. The latest that I read up on this week was that Meltzer had noted in the latest Observer that none of the Elite members had heard anything as of a few days ago. The belief is that things are on hold pending legal issues or legal stuff and another holdup that hasn't really been made clear. So Meltzer is saying that maybe they're just kind of waiting to make sure any legal proceedings get done with or, get taken care of before anybody comes back. But there wasn't a police report filed for anything that took place at All Out. So any criminal charges don't seem like a possibility when they're talking about legal problems. This sounds like it's going to be mostly contract stuff. If they have anything to work out with CM Punk, we've heard the reports and the rumors of a likely contract buyout with him, but there's also issues with the Elite and the Bucks as well. So maybe the Elite and the Bucks are like, we don't want to come back unless we know CM Punk's not coming back. But if he's going to come back and you're going to bring him back in, then we would like buyouts. Who knows? Who knows what the situation is? But at this point, the suspensions are probably only in play at this point because there's still some legal stuff to work out. That's the belief of Meltzer. I think it was Matt Jackson had said recently somewhere, maybe it was on a live stream or something, that he expects the fans to see them back pretty soon. But soon could be anything, because when it comes to legal proceedings, stuff can get tied up in courts forever. So if there is anything that they have to wait on, if there's a specific legal issue that needs to be dealt with, then that's going to be up to the courts as to whenever that's worked out. But that could involve anything. We don't know if there's lawyers involved or whatever. And like I said, could be money, contracts. There could be lawsuits filed. If maybe the Bucks want to file, if Punk threw the first punch, maybe they want to file a lawsuit against him and sue him. Who knows? And if that happens, that's going to make everything real ugly, and it's really going to postpone and prolong any sort of return for any parties involved here. So there was a recent picture of CM Punk that did surface. Him looks like he's sitting outside, got a big brace on his arm, was smiling, seemed to be happy. And we've talked about CM Punk. We wonder if he's sitting at home, maybe feeling a little bit remorseful about how things went down. And people pointed out to me, Greg, that's CM Punk. He does not feel any remorse, and he probably feels like he was completely in the right, and he's stubborn as all hell, which is why I can't see any way for all these parties to move forward with each other. And all four, Bucks, Kenny, and Punk, all coming back into the company, I just don't see that as a possibility. So especially since these suspensions have been going on for a while now with no end in sight, at least for the Elite. Punk, we know, will be a while before he could ever come back anyway due to the injury. But with the Elite guys, you have to wonder what the holdup with them is and what exactly is going on there. So it's been a little bit quiet on the news in terms of that situation, but we're still eyeballing it. And hopefully when the Bucks or Kenny come back, I'm curious how they are brought back, because you're not going to really run vignettes for them. I don't know if you might just pre-announce it the week before. Next week, we're going to see the return of Kenny. I can see Excalibur running through that when he's going through all of the matches set up for the following week. I can see him maybe mentioning it there. Or, you could just have him show up and do a run-in or come help somebody out. I don't know. And just bring them back onto TV with no announcement. Not really sure the best way to do it there or what kind of crowd reaction they're going to get and how this is all going to feel moving forward, especially from a backstage atmosphere with morale and frustrations and whatnot. Bringing these guys back in to see how, everything works. So we'll keep our eye on it, and we'll see when the Elite winds back up and finds themselves back in AEW. And speaking of AEW talent, a lot of talk about Andrade. Like I said, Andrade appears to be frustrated. Now, this could all just be a work. He could just be yanking our chain. We did hear, like I said, this week, Tony Khan has basically made an announcement that he is just flat out not going to be granting any releases, which is probably smart because it started happening a lot. It's one thing if one guy asks for his release, but if you just give a guy an unconditional release and other talent sees that, next thing you know, you're going to have 10 guys lined up, out your door. And I can understand how you want to just put things on hold until things just calm down. Maybe you can grant some releases in a little while, but you don't want to do anything right now. It's right after Brawl Out. A lot of talent is unsure. If you just say, I'll release anybody who wants out, a lot of guys might leave. WCW did that. That's the reason why the Radicals came over to WWE is I believe there was some sort of a talent meeting in WCW that said anybody wants out can have out. And all them guys bounced. So, you don't want that to happen to your company either. You got to protect yourself, but you got to balance it with, being logical in the sense that you shouldn't want anybody working for you who doesn't want to be there. So Andrade has been kind of absent and missing from wrestling matches. We have not seen him work in a ton of wrestling matches lately. He has been tweeting some frustration about this. He was on Dynamite last week. He was doing more of the Andrade family office shit, and Matt Hardy and the private party were involved in that. And the entire segment was 30 seconds. And after the show, he tweeted out 30 seconds and double exclamation point. And then just the other day, it might have been yesterday or the day before, he's holding a cup of coffee on a balcony at the beach with the hashtag Free El Idolo. So this kind of hints at the fact that Andrade is another guy, as a loud car goes by, that might be frustrated with his position there. He's another guy that has started to realize that, maybe I want to go back to WWE. Don't forget, he just got married to Charlotte. And there's a lot of guys there like Malachi Black or maybe others who have spouses or significant others in the other company, and now they want to travel together. But that's nothing new. There's been couples, separated like this forever, and they always seem fine with, managing their schedule that way. So maybe once the Brawl Out thing happened, a lot of talent maybe decided that maybe we should go back to WWE. There's a regime change there, and maybe now that is where the grass is greener. So in Andrade's case, it feels like he's got a pretty good gripe here because he's a great wrestler. He should definitely be utilized more. And if he really is unhappy there, I can see someone like him wanting to go back to WWE as well because he worked under Triple H in NXT and he had a big run in NXT and his run on the main roster was complete shit, but that had nothing to do with Triple H. Now that Triple H is in charge, a lot of the talent is probably seeing opportunities for them in WWE to be pushed a hell of a lot better than they were when Vince is in charge. Plus, you got his wife there, and I think Andrade was largely given his release as a favor to Charlotte, was he not? Unfortunately, Charlotte has no stroke. Charlotte has no pull in AEW, so there's no strings she can pull to get Andrade out of his contract over there. And a lot of people are speculating that maybe this is just Andrade and AEW leaning into these rumors, maybe helping fuel these rumors, because we've got a pretty massive match booked for next Friday on Rampage. It's going to be Andrade El Idolo against 10. Dark Order's 10. It's going to be career versus mask. So if 10 wins, Andrade must leave AEW forever. If Andrade wins, Preston must unmask. Now, I feel like this could go either way. I feel like if Tony Khan is going to say, okay, I'm going to give you a release, but I'm not going to give anybody else one, and if he is going to just grant this release, or if Andrade is bothering him so much or making such a stink or getting on Tony Khan's case, release me, and then Tony Khan's like, fine, I'll release you, but I'm going to job you out on a Rampage. Not even going to do it on Dynamite or a pay-per-view. We're going to job you out on Rampage and use your loss as a way to get another kid over. I could completely understand that. But I could not see Andrade losing to 10 either if he's sticking around. A lot of people are like, I can't see Andrade losing to 10. Well, you could see that if he's going to be leaving, if he's going back to WWE, you're definitely going to want to job him out, to an underneath guy or something, or try to, benefit from a loss like that. And it feels like on TV, they have been teasing stuff with 10, right? Doesn't it seem like they're kind of hinting at the fact that they're going to break him off from the Dark Order and maybe push him on his own and eventually remove that mask? They have talked about that mask coming off. I can totally see that. He's a good-looking guy. He's jacked, and maybe they want to take advantage of that, of his presence and his facials, and try to give him, a personality and some more mic time and things like that. And they want to maybe give him a little bit of a push. Now, you got a bloated roster right now. It's going to be really hard for anybody to get a super hard push and get a lot of attention with everything going on right now. But it would be a great way to start it and have him beat Andrade here. He gets to keep the mask for now, but maybe he loses it down the line and then Andrade is out and he goes to WWE. But I think the better thing to do here likely is for Andrade to beat him and for this kid to unmask. They've already kind of teased that on TV, and it seems the most likely scenario here. I could even see him, maybe going heel, after that. If Andrade beats him, I could see Preston maybe breaking away from the Dark Order, perhaps. I'm not sure. But as of right now, it feels like Andrade is going to be sticking around. I can't see Andrade getting a release right after. Tony Khan said publicly that he's not granting any releases right now. So it does feel like it's AEW and Andrade leaning into these rumors to really give the match some serious stakes. That's what you want in wrestling. You want a match with stakes, and career versus mask is some of the best stakes you can get. So either way, something big's going to go down. We're getting a guy unmasked, or Andrade's leaving the company. That's big news, and that's going to be taking place next Friday on a live edition of Rampage, by the way. I believe Rampage and Battle of the Belts will air back-to-back live next Friday. Big week for AEW. Also, Roosh has officially signed his AEW deal, so he is all elite. That's good news. But in terms of everything going on right now in AEW, the Malachi Black stuff, the Buddy Matthews stuff. Buddy Matthews was another guy who was rumored to be leaving AEW or maybe done with AEW, but again is also just taking some time off apparently as well. His significant other is Rhea Ripley, currently in WWE, so Malachi and Buddy are two guys that I think would suffer under Vince but would flourish under Triple H, and they probably both know that. So I can understand talent looking at the regime change in WWE and being like, some talent, not all talent, but some talent being like, oh, shit, kind of wish I wouldn't have signed here, because if I just would have stuck it out, my situation might be a lot better right now in WWE. So I can see a lot of the talent. I would be that way. I would kind of be panicking. If I'm 38 years old, how many more years do I have left? If I'm tied into a 4-year deal, I want to get out of this and go somewhere where I want to work before I get too old. And you also have to think about WWE and AEW situations, because, of course, like everything on wrestling Twitter, it's just nothing but false equivalencies. And everybody thinks that the Tony Khan and AEW situation is exactly the same as WWE when they won't release talent. And it is different. It's similar in some ways. I am of the belief, even with Tony Khan, Vince, Triple H, whoever, I'm of the belief that if you're a promoter and you have somebody that doesn't want to be there, then you should let him go or let them go within reason, provided they're not a huge star or they're not a pillar of the company or anything like that. And I always got frustrated with WWE because it seemed like they were holding back or holding people hostage that they just didn't need. They didn't need them. Company would not even miss a beat without them. There's no reason for them to keep them on. They haven't spent or invested enough money that they would really be losing their shirt if they let them go. The company would completely be totally unaffected in every way possible if they would just let go Roderick Strong or Mustafa Ali or Luke Harper or anybody, or FTR or anybody else that just want to get the fuck out of there. And they held them there for no reason, just to jerk them around and just to have them spin their wheels, only to finally release them when they could have just released them, a couple of years before. We've seen this so many times. It's frustrating, and it always made me mad when somebody like Ali, who works his ass off, is a great talent. He's well respected backstage. He, is a professional. You've never heard a negative word about him. And somebody like that goes to WWE management and like, look, I think it's just best for myself, my family, if I get my release. I appreciate what you guys have done with me here. I've enjoyed my time, but I'm asking you to let me go so I can go continue my career elsewhere and be happy. And they look at somebody like Ali and say no. If Randy Orton's coming to you and saying the same thing, I'm going to tell him no. Same thing with Roman Reigns or any top star in the company. But Ali, the only reason he's not a top star is because you guys didn't let him be one. So it's not like he's not capable, but he's certainly not somebody that if you lose him, is going to harm or affect the company in any way. So what other reason do you have to keep them on other than spite? What other reason do you have to keep them on other than you just might be pissed off that they're running their mouth a little bit on social media that they want out? There's really no excuse for that. And it always really pissed me off that WWE was holding on to people that they didn't need. They were holding on to people that they weren't using, that were sitting in catering every week, eating steak and cookies and doing nothing else. These are the people that they're holding hostage, not people that are actively on TV every week and involved in big storylines. So when you have the big Scrumgate at All Out, you combine that with the regime change, the morale drop in AEW, a lot of uncertainty there, and talent not being as comfortable as maybe they once were, and now a bunch of people maybe want out. If you're Tony Khan, you got to just say chill for a minute. Hold on here, everyone. Everyone chill. Let me get this shit organized. I'll probably grant some releases, but I just can't let anybody go who walks up to my door. I can't let go 5 people who were on TV last week. I just can't let them all go. It is not the same thing. If you have a talent there that is just ridiculously unhappy, they hate everything they're doing, they want out, and they're just complaining, and Tony Khan isn't using them. There are some people like that, like Brian Cage, who had his contract rolled over. We haven't seen him. There probably are some aspects like that. I think the Brian Cages and anybody in a Brian Cage situation absolutely should be let go if they want out. Tony Khan's got no business keeping them around. But if somebody like Andrade or Malachi Black or Buddy Matthews or Miro or Danielson or somebody that you're using on TV currently a lot wants the release, I am definitely going to be hesitant. Another couple of guys that don't seem too happy, FTR, I think they worked an indie event or something like that, and I think Dax got on the mic and said, hey, Tony, we still work for you, book us. So we're seeing that AEW, due to the inexperience from a booking standpoint of Tony Khan, I still think Tony Khan does a lot of good things with his booking. He definitely does seem to have, a lot of the fans' best interest at heart, even if he doesn't execute it well all the time. But one of the glaring problems in AEW that nobody can deny is that they are struggling to spread out and give proper TV time to the wrestlers. And that's because they only have 3 hours as opposed to 7 that WWE has, and they nearly have as big of a roster. So there's a lot less TV time to go around. Even if you add the dark and elevation stuff, there's a lot less time to go around for your major stars, and you got a lot of major stars in the company right now. So they've got to do a better job of balancing that. Like I said, maybe adding another hour to Rampage or something. I'm not in favor of a 3-hour Dynamite, but if you had a 3-hour Dynamite, that definitely would add a lot of TV time for some guys, give the guys and the women some more matches and some more reps and some more segments and whatnot. I think that hopefully Tony Khan has got a team around him that can start managing that a little bit better, because when you do have great pieces of talent like Andrade who go 3, 4, or 5 weeks without having a match, that is a problem. That's a major problem. And WWE, even though they used a lot of talent like shit, they were released on TV every week. And that used to be something I complained about. One of the things I always complained about as a fan when I looked at it from a talent perspective, and I'm like, I would really hate to come to TV every week and be told to go out there and do something ridiculous in a meaningless match or a meaningless segment, or just go out there and kill myself in a match that people are going to forget about tomorrow, putting miles on your body and, risking injury and just more wear and tear for no reason. But what's even worse is being on a show and not being used at all, or being wanting and willing and able to wrestle, but you're just not being booked or you're not given the right time. So, there's got to be a balance there too of not wasting your time, but, by just putting you in the ring and do meaningless stuff, but without, having you just sit backstage and do nothing either. So I understand that there's a lot of talent in AEW that are frustrated, and this is definitely an area that Tony Khan needs to work on bad. He's got to do better with the women, and he's got to do better with the overall, just spacing and booking of your guys, because there's going to be more and more talent, becoming frustrated the more that narrative starts pulsing through your locker room, and you get guys talking and you get guys and girls riled up and they start getting mad and they all start thinking the same way, and you start, having some big, revolution against the company or something. So I don't like where any of this is headed. I think AEW and Tony Khan really needs to get a handle on this and make sure that people are being used. You got great talent there. You got your Miros and your FTRs and your Andrades and guys like that absolutely need the TV time and need more of it. So we'll see where the Andrade stuff goes and how many other AEW talent, decide they might want out or are frustrated, or how talent morale improves behind the scenes, because even though there are a few pieces of talent that are unhappy, there's lots of people who are happy. Apparently Swerve, when he was contacted by WWE probably to come back and be a part of Hit Row, because we see how terrible Hit Row is without Swerve. Swerve was like, talk to my lawyers. And he went right to AEW and told them what happened. So there are some people in the company that still, even with Triple H in charge, probably have no interest in hearing from WWE, but there are some that I'm sure want to go back, and I don't doubt that at all. So we will see where all the talent goes and what happens with Andrade next week, because if he loses next week, that means that he was given his release. And if he was given his release and other guys weren't, all that's going to do is add to talent frustration. That's why I think Andrade leaving at this point is kind of far-fetched, and I think everybody just needs to chill out and wait a little bit. And anybody who might want their release, I am not going to Tony Khan right now and asking for my release. He seems to be dealing with this a lot, and he's probably going to shoot you down. I would wait until the dust settles. I would wait until things cool down. I would wait until the beginning of the year. If AEW has a stretch of a few good weeks there, and and you're not really being used, and Tony Khan is in a great mood, maybe knock on his door and be like, hey, is it cool if I have a release? Maybe he'll give you one. It's all about timing. You guys ever asked the boss for a favor? Ever? It's all about timing. Don't go up to him just when it's convenient for you. Go up to them and ask this when it's convenient for them, when you've caught them at the right time. Same thing if you're a kid. If you want something from your mom and dad, or if you want money, or if you need something from your parents, are you going to approach them when they're pissed off? Are you going to approach them when they're in a bad mood? No, you're going to pick your spot. So if I'm a piece of talent there and I want out, I'm basically just going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to post any cryptic tweets or anything on social media that lends evidence that I might be upset or I might be unhappy with my time there or my position there. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, wait for the right time, and the minute I see my opportunity, hey, this would be a great time to see if you can get out of this contract, then that's when I would strike. That's what I would do. If I really wanted out of there bad enough, I would not make a big stink. I would try to behave and approach it as professionally as possible, because this is your life, and if you're going to do something that's going to affect the rest of your life, you want to make sure you do it right. So we'll see how and where this talent, how they deal with their frustrations in the company. Let's move on to some more news here, since we're starting to run out of time. I've just been rambling this entire podcast. I apologize for that. Let's talk about this Vince McMahon Vice documentary. This is interesting. Mike Johnson, PW Insider, is reporting that Vice is working on a Vince McMahon documentary to air in October. Well, guess what? Today's October 1st, so that's exciting. It makes me think that this must already have been shot and edited, and it's ready to rock, because it's going to be released sometime this month, although no one knows. And I'm really interested in checking out, I believe the first episode, I don't have it written down either. I want to say it might be October 4th, but the Tales from the Territories, the one that's produced by The Rock and the producers of Dark Side of the Ring, that looks really good. I'm really excited to get into that Territory show on the Vice channel. So when you combine that with the Vince McMahon documentary that's coming out, that is going to be pretty interesting. And also, meanwhile, Dave Meltzer noted in the latest Observer that the Netflix docuseries on Vince McMahon that was scrapped after the scandal and the hush money and the retirement apparently is back on. Unfortunately, it's back on with no timetable for a release, but the Netflix project on Vince McMahon, big docuseries, apparently is back in the works, on top of the Vice documentary that we're going to get this month, and still a lot of rumors that Vince McMahon will be an inductee into this year's 2023 Hall of Fame class at WrestleMania, a show that I will be at in LA next year for 39. So I don't think we have seen the last of Vince, even though from a creative standpoint, he's no longer in charge of WWE. I still think Vince McMahon will have a presence in our lives over the next year. Also, there is some news. I like this. There's some news also coming out of the Observer that is reporting that WWE might be changing the name of the Day One pay-per-view that they just started, last year, that was held on January 1st. I believe last year was when they took the belt off of Big E and that whole fucking fiasco. And the fact that they wanted to run a yearly pay-per-view on January 1st, I thought was going to be weird. I didn't know how they were going to pull that off because January 1st can fall on any day of the week. We could have a Wednesday PLE or a Monday night. What happens if January 1st is a Monday? How are you going to do Day One and have a pay-per-view on the same night that you have a Raw show? So it sounds like WWE, it might have dawned on them that maybe trying to do a pay-per-view every January 1st is pretty stupid. So they are likely going to not only change the name of the show, but probably move the date around a little bit too, which I think is great. January 1st is too much going on New Year's Day. I don't want a wrestling pay-per-view. It's college football. It's a holiday. Shit's just happening, man. I'm not trying to watch wrestling on New Year's Day. So I have no issue with that not taking place. This year, January 1st, is a Sunday, and we know WWE's been running their pay-per-views on Saturdays lately, so that might be another reason why they might be moving away from this. So we will see. Probably sometime in November, we're going to know what WWE's going to do for the January pay-per-view, and they might just move it to New Year's Eve or something like that. I don't know, or maybe the following week, maybe do it January 8th, the following, or maybe January 9th, the following, no, I guess that would be January 7th, would be the Saturday after that. That could be likely, and probably some sort of a name change as well, which is totally fine. I also want to talk briefly about Seth Rollins' interview with Ariel Helwani. It was a 36-minute long interview. I watched about 20 minutes of it and wrote down some of the, the tidbits that I listened to. Unfortunately, I probably did miss a good part of this as well because I didn't have time to listen to the whole thing. But he definitely talked about his career, talked about how he feels about himself, that he actually does believe that he is the best in the business, but he also understands the dynamic of things. He talked about Roman being the man. He talked about his relationship with Roman Reigns, how the two of them have always had an excellent relationship. They've never butted heads on anything, and everything has been nothing but smooth. Still has a great relationship with Jon Moxley. He says he's very close with Renee, and they both have kids that are, fairly new and close in age, so they're always sharing baby pictures and things like that. And he mentioned that last time WWE was in Cincinnati that he stopped by Moxley's house and popped in just to say hello, said he's very happy for him and proud of the great work he's doing in AEW, and basically talked about the Shield together. The three of them are still pretty tight. He did acknowledge that Roman and Moxley are a little bit better friends with each other than he is with the two of them. But overall, he says he still gets along and loves both of them a lot. And I'm here to tell you, as a fan, at some point, we're going to get that triple fist bump in the middle of the ring again somewhere. I mean, obviously, it's going to have to be in WWE. Seth and Roman would have to go to AEW to make that work. I can't see that happening. But at some point, even if it's way down the line, even if it's 8 years from now, at some point, Moxley, Rollins, and Roman have got to be touching fists in the ring. I have no doubt it will happen. He also talked about his matches with Cody. Even Ariel had asked him, do you believe the 3 losses in a row you took to Cody hurt you? And he said no. He did say, when Cody was coming in, it was a little bit demoralizing because I knew he was coming in and I was going to have to, put him over. But he did also acknowledge that his equity isn't going anywhere. He's already a made man. Cody needed these wins way more than Seth did, and that's something that I always point out a lot. When people are like, oh, this person shouldn't lose to him or whatever, and I'm like, you got to understand, in wrestling, once you're a major star, once you're somebody and you've made it to Seth Rollins level, you can afford a few losses. It doesn't mean anything, and it's not going to hurt you at all in the grand scheme of things in your career. Win-losses, even Seth pointed this out, that wins-losses in WWE are not as important as AEW, and he believes that he came out of the Cody feud elevated, rather than harmed. And he didn't have very nice things to say. He said basically the opposite about Bray Wyatt and the Fiend character, and about how difficult working with a character like that was, because he didn't feel like he came out of that program better than he went in, where he did feel like that with Cody. So I kind of liked how he presented all that. Really seemed like, he understands what he was there to do, and is always more than willing to do business and, do what he's got to do for himself, his career, and the company. He also talked about the night he was attacked by that fan, which was kind of crazy. And he did mention that, he does kind of look over his shoulder a little bit on live events and stuff. And we saw that night the way that guy ran. I think it was just a week before. I was at Monday Night Raw here in San Diego, and I sat right on the end of the Tron. And I got like a side shot of all the wrestlers making their entrances. I was just sitting right there. And there's no security around. You're right next to the backstage area. I could actually see behind the Tron. But if you were a crazy person and you wanted to hop over that barricade and make a beeline towards a wrestler making their entrance, you could do it. Nobody would be there to catch you. That was one of the things I was thinking about the whole time when I was sitting there. I'm like, I could just jump right over this and run right out to the ring. I could probably make it to the ring before security got me. So that's all very scary. And Seth talked about that. And he said that when he saw the guy out of the corner of his eye, at TV, they usually have production crew guys running all over the place, setting up pyro or cleaning something up or moving something around. So in his peripherals, he just saw this figure kind of running. He just thought it was a production guy. And next thing you know, he was being attacked. So Seth acknowledges that he really escaped a dangerous situation there, but he still does have to look over his shoulder a little bit on live events when security is maybe a little bit less tight than it is on TVs and pay-per-views and whatnot. So that was all a really scary situation last year as well, or earlier this year, whenever the hell that happened. But what I saw of the interview was really good. I'm going to try to watch the end of it today, or the rest of it today. But it was a pretty good sit-down with Rollins. At least he acknowledged that him wearing the suits isn't really him. He goes, oh, this is not me. Because Helwani was like, when you go get coffee, do you wear this shit? And of course, he's wearing the skin-tight pants with no socks that I fucking hate. And he's like, nah, man, this isn't me at all. And I'm like, oh, that's good to hear. I'm glad you're not walking around Davenport, Iowa wearing that shit. So he probably just dresses like me, shorts and a t-shirt, and calls it a day. But Rollins, I think, from what I saw, I think he came off pretty good in this interview. And he definitely acknowledges and knows that he is one of the best, and he fully intends and wants to be the best, but knows that sometimes the cookie crumbles different ways. Even though he would like to be Roman, he understands why Roman has that spot, and he firmly believes that he's just as capable of being in that spot as well. And WWE has called upon him to be the man a couple of times before. Even when Roman got sick with his leukemia, he was called up and wound up, winning the Rumble in 18, and then beating Brock at WrestleMania 35, right, in the opening match, something like that. So when you think about Rollins and Roman, one of the things I liked about what he was talking with Helwani about was how the two of them really could have an interesting trajectory, and they could have a big-time money match still in the future. I know they worked at the Royal Rumble this past year, which was a really good match, but I personally believe these two guys can main event Mania at some point. And maybe not this year. There might be too much stuff going on with Roman to make that happen. But Seth Rollins, really, other than Roman Reigns, is the only guy that was allowed to beat Brock Lesnar the way he did. I know Goldberg got that win over him. Who else? And Drew McIntyre beat Lesnar as well. But prior to that happening, it was just Seth. I mean, hell, I think Seth was even a little more dominant over Brock was before Roman was. Seth was beating him first, and then Roman finally got the Brock monkey off his back and was able to defeat him as well. So Seth and Roman, I definitely think, can be, the Hogan Warrior, can be the Bret and Shawn, can be the Orton Cena in the company. I firmly believe it, and I would love for them to rekindle their issue, because they have had some as well. I thought Seth Rollins full-blown turned babyface at the Royal Rumble. I believe that. Obviously, that's not what turned out to happen, but it felt like the way that match came off, that Seth was going to show up on TV the next week with it being a huge babyface by nearly having Roman Reigns defeated there. So since Rollins has stomped and pinned Brock Lesnar in his life, I don't see any reason why he can't do that to Roman Reigns at some point in the future. Believe he already did. He beat Roman Reigns, didn't he? Didn't he beat him at Money in the Bank when Roman got suspended? Seth Rollins came back, attacked Roman like the month before. Money in the Bank happened. He beat Roman clean. It blew all of our minds. What the fuck? And then Ambrose hit the ring and then beat Seth for the title. All 3 Shield members, WWE champion in the same night. And then the very next morning, we get the news from WWE that Roman's been suspended. Oh, that's why. So I can definitely see these two big-time main event WrestleMania match. Maybe WrestleMania 40. I'd have no problem with that. Some people might, but I wouldn't. I would have no problem with a Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns WrestleMania 40 main event. You heard it here first if it winds up happening. So we'll see. But Seth Rollins, definitely one of the best in biz for sure. What's going on with this Mick Foley In Your House video? Have you seen that? Mr. In Your House. It's on the Foley is Pod YouTube channel. Pretty hilarious. I checked it out right before we went live here, and I wanted to mention something on the podcast about it. But if you have not seen Foley's In Your House video, it's pretty damn funny. Let me run through a couple more things here before I go over to the chat and answer some more super chats and see if you guys have anything else to say before we start cruising out of here. Last week on Dynamite, by the way, we watched that together. Kind of a lackluster Dynamite, to be honest. I think this week's Dynamite is set up to be much bigger. But last week we had Juice Robinson make an appearance. He, of course, lost a championship eliminator match to Jon Moxley. Great main event with Jericho against Bandito. Bandito was very impressive, apparently, to AEW management. There's even a video of him hugging Tony Khan after the match. Got kind of busted open. You could see blood coming through his mask there. And apparently had to scramble to get some gear together because he was called upon last minute due to some of the AEW talent being unavailable because of Hurricane Ian. He was called upon about 2 days before and apparently did not have gear with him, had to search around Philly to actually find something presentable for him to wear to the ring, and then went out there and had a hell of a match against Chris Jericho. The Saraya promo has drawn a lot of criticism this week as well, and I can understand that. We watched that together on Wednesday, and one of the things I was saying about it is how little sense it made. Because Saraya is out there. She was a little rusty in her promo, and she is still, kind of vague about what she's doing. She's here to change things, and it's her house now. And I'm like, well, if you're not going to wrestle and you're not going to get physical, how is this going to be your house? How are you going to change the business here the way you did in WWE, or at least the way you claim you did in WWE? And then when she goes in to call out all the women, I want all the women to come out here. And then they did. And one of those women was Toni Storm, who's the current AEW Women's Champion. And I'm like, why are these women listening to Paige? If I'm Toni Storm, I'm saying, Paige, you come back here. You want to talk to me? You come back here. You don't summon me. And she did. She came out with other baby faces. They stood in the ring and let Paige, somebody who just got to AEW a week ago, they let a brand new person who's been in the company for a week, introduced to us fans who've been watching AEW for 3 years, introduce us to 4 women we are well aware of. We know who every goddamn one of them is. One of them's your fucking champion, and you're like introducing us to them, and this woman's going to do this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then all the heels come out, and of course, Britt makes a comment about Paige's neck and her name, and then Paige says, well, your name rhymes with shit. It was just a bad promo all around. I did not like any of it. It led to a lumberjack match, but I think it drew a lot more criticism and negativity than it did good. I mean, and even though I'm really happy that Paige Saraya is in AEW, I wish her the best. If they're not sure what she's going to do yet, and the doctors aren't sure about her physical status, if she's going to be able to be cleared, if she's not going to be able to be cleared, if she'll wrestle or not, if she'll get a little physical. Some folks are assuming she's going to wrestle in some capacity and probably eventually get in the ring in some way, but she might not be capable of working a full schedule. She said it herself in her promo that she's damaged, but she's not broken. and even took the shot at Vince McMahon. Finally, a boss who listens to me, which, of course, got the fans' panties all in a knot, which is hilarious. Let it go. Who cares? Who cares what Saraya says? I believe that Saraya was jerked around a lot by WWE, but I also believe she was treated very, very well by WWE because, and the movie helped. You know, don't give WWE too much credit with Saraya because she acted like a fool for a good portion of her life there. I've got sun coming in on my neck there. It's not too distracting, is it? But she acted like a complete fool with the sex tape leak. Then her relationship with Alberto was very tumultuous. She was making very, very bad decisions. She was failing wellness tests, and she had some suspensions. But WWE stuck with her through all that. But you got to remember, they also stuck with her because they didn't want to lose her because of the Fighting with My Family movie that they were filming, or that was being filmed, and they were using WWE Raws to film some of that stuff. The Rock was a part of it, and of course Paige was going to be getting a lot of publicity for that movie, so they didn't want to lose her and release her right in the middle of all that coming out. So let's not pretend WWE had Saraya's best interest at heart, because that's bullshit. Although when she was going through personal issues and things like that, they did help her out and they were there for her. So if I'm in Saraya's shoes, I don't know if I've been treated relatively well by my previous employer, other than to pop the fans. I don't know what the point is of going out and taking a shot at them, but you know, it's little shots like that between the two companies that really don't bother me at all. And I think if they bother you, you really need to have some fun in your life, because that is not worth getting upset over something like that. But you know, I kind of get it. You know, people don't like, you know, hypocrisy, but I also don't think WWE was as good to Paige as people think they were. You know what I mean? That movie had a lot to do with it. But Saraya's behavior also had a lot to do with it. So she's in a different place now. She seems to, you know, have cleaned up her act, and hopefully she can bring some good into the AEW women's division, because that women's division still has a lot of problems. And if Tony Khan decides and gets his act together with the women's division and starts booking it better, Saraya might be credited with all that. So we'll see how that goes. Next week is going to be fun. 3-year anniversary show. It will have, according to Tony Khan, a 15-minute overrun. So we're going to go about 2 hours and 15 minutes next week for for Dynamite. And then on Friday, Rampage and Battle of the Belts apparently will both air back-to-back on Friday night live. So a big week for AEW this week. That should be a lot of fun. And like I said, we're going to be up here watching Dynamite together on Wednesday. And unfortunately, I will not be here to watch Battle of the Belts or Rampage, though, but I'm sure we'll get into that on our Extreme Rules review. Let's talk about Raw real quick. We got a big show set for this week. For this coming Monday, we got Braun Strowman taking on Chad Gable, Gargano against Otis, the returning Candice LeRae taking on Dakota Kai, and a contract signing between Bianca Belair and Bayley for Extreme Rules as well. And we have the following Monday on October 10th, that's going to be the season premiere. That's going to be the big DX 25-year reunion show, or whatever, reunion segment with all of the members of DX. And right now, I guess it's going to be Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Road Dogg, and X-Pac. One notable absence from this is Billy Gunn, who's currently under contract to AEW. And this is why the stories that we heard about the contract tampering bother me so bad, is because I'm going to see if I can fix this light. Hold on one second. Let's see if that fixes that. Let's see if that works. Nope. I don't know where that light is coming from, but it's shining on my neck. I apologize for that. I was just trying to make it better for the viewer. Let me see if I can stand on a spot that's not going to shine it right on my head. What if we do maybe that? Okay, let's go over here. It's still showing up on my face. I don't know where it's coming from. Wait. There we go. Nope, still not happening. Okay. Well, bear with me here. We were going to talk about DX on October 10th. It's going to be their big 25-year reunion segment, and Billy Gunn is not scheduled for this. And I think it would be, and like I said a minute ago, that's why I had such a big problem with the tampering bullshit, because if these two companies can just stay on like relatively good terms, these are the little agreements that I want to see. Remember a couple months back, I talked about WWE and AEW phoning each other up and say, hey, let's do something fun for the fans. Let's do a segment where we send R-Truth to Dynamite and you guys send us Danhausen. And just for one segment, completely unannounced, in a backstage segment on Dynamite, you see R-Truth and he's confused. He showed up at the wrong show. He's supposed to be at Raw. And then on Raw, during the 24/7 title chase behind the scenes, they just run past a whole bunch of people, and one of those guys standing there is just Danhausen, or Danhausen pops out of a trash can or gets pulled from under the ring. And then you never say another word about it again. And then the following week, both guys are back in the respective shows like nothing ever happened. Little tiny agreements like that, I think, would be so good and so beneficial for the fans. We've seen this happen even recently. Chris Jericho, Big Show, Bryan Danielson all sent video messages in for John Cena's 20th anniversary celebration in the company. We've seen that before. We've seen Christian be sent to TNA so WWE could use Ric Flair for the Hall of Fame. We saw AJ Styles send in a taped message to Impact's anniversary show or whatnot. So we've seen things like this before, and if these two companies could remain on relatively good terms, then I believe little agreements like this, little arrangements can be made that would really benefit the fans and would do no harm to either company. And it's one thing, like, I understand that Tony Khan can't call Triple H and be like, hey, can I have Roman Reigns for one night? Let's not be stupid here. We know that major things like that, a big forbidden door being kicked down, or any sort of major main event matches, Kenny coming to Raw and Seth going to Dynamite, shit like that is not going to happen. But smaller things, I think, should be able to happen. And a guy like Billy Gunn, who's been in the business for so long and has such a long history in WWE with DX, I think Tony Khan should allow Billy to go to Raw to be a part of that. Imagine if we get Scissor Me Daddy Ass chants on Raw. That would be crazy. Billy might be involved in an angle right now that might be a little bit too over for Tony Khan to want to let him go, or WWE to even want. Because WWE, Triple H doesn't want to bring in Billy Gunn for his AEW gimmick to be more over than what they're doing in the ring. When they're trying to do the Suck It chant and the fans are Scissor Me Daddy Ass instead, maybe they don't want to do that. But I think it would be such an easy agreement to make if these companies, you know, if there wasn't this tampering shit going on right now, or maybe a few bad feelings or some animosity. It would be great if Tony Khan could let Billy go to Raw, and then as payment for that, or to repay them for allowing Billy to come to Raw, have Cody send in a taped message for Dynamite's 3-year anniversary on Wednesday. Play it on the Tron. Hey, good to see you guys. Cody Rhodes, just want to say, love all you guys there. I miss my AEW family. Happy and congratulations on 3 great years. Continue the great work, or whatever. And that will be a little trade for Billy going to Raw and being a part of the 20th anniversary stuff. There should be no reason why little agreements like that shouldn't be possible, because it benefits the fans. And even though WWE and AEW are direct competitors, they should understand that there are going to be certain situations that will be beneficial not only to both companies, but also to the fans as well. And that's when I think they should come together and work together in certain cases, when it's right, when it fits, when you can send a guy over there, it's not going to hurt you, and all the fans are just going to be happier about it. And like I said, with the tribalism being so strong in wrestling, I mentioned this back in the R-Truth Danhausen stuff. I said, with the tribalism being as strong as ever amongst wrestling fans, and wrestling fans being of this belief that you absolutely must choose to love one and hate the other, which I think is ridiculous, maybe working agreements like this will help bridge the gap with them. Maybe they can realize, I'm like, well, if they're working together, why am I arguing with Jimmy Ballsack on Twitter about these two companies and which one's better? Is this not a humongous waste of my time doing this, when we should all be coming together? So I think like little arrangements like that would be so good for wrestling. It would be so good for WWE, for AEW, and it would be fun for the talent as well. So we will see on October 10th. I'm not holding my breath on Billy Gunn making an appearance there, but I'm hoping maybe something can be worked out on the 11th hour that would get him a part of that. So we will see 1 week from Monday, if that does wind up to be the case on October 10th. I am nearly out of time here, but we got to at least talk about SmackDown last night. I don't have time to run through this whole show, but I really like the tag team opener with Solo and Sami Zayn defeating Ricochet and Madcap Moss. I love the interaction backstage with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Long-term storytelling there, really cool. Looks like Owens is desperately trying to save Sami Zayn from the bloodline, and eventually he should be able to pull that off. I really, really like where that's going. We had McIntyre beating Austin Theory in a DQ that led to a big six-man main event later on, with Drew McIntyre teaming up with Johnny Gargano and Kevin Owens to defeat Theory and Alpha Academy, who were all a part of the original McIntyre and Theory match earlier on. So that was a pretty good main event there. I thought we had Hit Row beating Los Lotharios. Hit Row sucks without Swerve. Scott, that's all I'm going to say. Now that Strickland is in AEW, Hit Row is lost without him. Ronda Rousey defeated Natalya after the match. Liv Morgan showed up. Big pull-apart brawl between the two of them. And they have an Extreme Rules match. That's what they have, right? Extreme Rules match at Extreme Rules for the title. And we will see if Liv Morgan is actually able to survive that match with Ronda Rousey or not. She already did the big table spot last week. She really seems like she is showing no fear, and we'll have to see if she remains that fearless at Extreme Rules next week. Bayley defeated Shotzi. The tank is back, finally. They've been bringing that tank to TV every week, haven't used it yet. Shotzi finally came out with the tank last night. She did lose. Ada Rose Plant for the loss, and she continued the attack Bayley did on Shotzi after the match until Bianca Belair showed up from Raw to brawl a little bit with Bayley, but she escapes before she can eat a KOD on a ladder. My favorite part of SmackDown last night was Max Dupree finally cutting ties with Maximum Male Models. They've teased this for about 3 weeks now, that he may be getting fed up and might be returning to his LA Knight persona, which after he was done with them, I think he decked Mansoor or decked Massey or whatever he did. He punched him, and he goes, you know what? This was never for me. And he took his watch off or something, and as he's walking away, he goes, yeah. So I think LA Knight is on his way back finally, and I don't want Maximum Male Models to go anywhere. They are great, but Max Dupree was just not a fit there for me at all. So that was kind of your SmackDown in a nutshell last night. Still loving the Jey Uso and Sami Zayn dynamic. Jey fucking hates him, even got in Sami Zayn's face a little bit last night, and Sami said, you know what? Take it up with Roman Reigns, which I loved. So eventually, I think War Games would be the perfect spot for Sami to finally get murdered, because this is a very entertaining situation between Sami and the Bloodline, but at the same time, it cannot last forever. So War Games at Survivor Series, I think, would be a great spot to put the Bloodline in a match against 4 guys, and Sami Zayn either does something in the match that costs the Bloodline the match, or he just fucks up in some way that basically makes the Bloodline turn on him and completely annihilate him, and hopefully will reunite him with his longtime friend Kevin Owens. And I love how this weird sun just somehow left my face. Maybe a cloud came over it now. But anyway, y'all can see me now. How nice is that? Let's run through the Extreme Rules card real quick as well. That's coming up, like I said, next Saturday. We have the Brawling Brutes versus Imperium in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. I like that. Karrion Kross taking on Drew McIntyre in a strap match. Edge versus Finn Balor in an I Quit match. And like I said, WrestleVotes tweeted out this week that Finn Balor is in line for a big push in the company, and he was always a big favorite of Triple H in NXT. That's why I can see Balor potentially winning this match, and maybe this would be a good spot to debut the White Rabbit. But then White Rabbit and Judgment Day together, that might be a little bit too much. Not really sure, unless the White Rabbit comes in to be the new leader of Judgment Day. No idea. But that could be a candidate for where the White Rabbit debuts. Also could happen in the McIntyre and Karrion Kross match. We have Matt Riddle, taking on Seth Rollins in a fight pit match. So I'm guessing it's going to be similar to what the Lion's Den match or some shit. So, or no, fight pit match is going to have a cage, right? Riddle did a fight pit match with Timothy Thatcher, I think, in NXT, right? So yeah, I guess we've seen that. We've seen a fight pit match before, so that'll be good. And then, of course, the 2 women's matches. Bianca Belair defending the Raw Women's title against Bayley in a ladder match. And, of course, Liv Morgan defending against Ronda Rousey in an Extreme Rules match. Your guess is as good as mine. What main event's here? You can make an argument that it should be one of the women. But if the plan is to debut White Rabbit and he debuts in some kind of a match, I feel like that match has got to be the main event. So it might be Edge and Finn Balor, or I think it'd be Edge, Balor, Cross, Drew, or Riddle, Rollins. All of those could main event, I believe, unless they want to put the women on last. That is very possible that it could be Ronda and Liv Morgan in the main event. Not really sure. But Extreme Rules looks like a great card, does it not? Might even have a match or two added to that before it's all said and done. Anyway, I got to apologize for the rambling. I got to get out of here now and head to work. But before I do, let me cruise over here to the chat and make sure I'm not missing any more super chats. And I thank you guys who have been commenting. How Wheezy, member for 2 months. Good to see you, shoot, brother. I hope to see Bray next Saturday, and you will be there live. That's right. I forgot you said you're going to that. That's going to be awesome. $5 more from Mark Galan. Still given the timing, I'm sure Jericho destroying Ring of Honor plot had to have come from Punk embarrassing the company. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I'm not sure if it's really that tied in, but definitely. Oh, okay. Thank you for that, Anthony. That's good. Anthony Alston points out Bel-Air could be a reference to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will Smith is from Philly. The location of Extreme Rules, that's a stretch, but at least it fits. At least it's some sort of connection, you know, because otherwise Bel-Air didn't make much sense. 04062 is the zip code for Windham, Maine. That's cool. And the zip code last week had a town in Kentucky, Corbin, Kentucky, which had a Wyndham Hotel there as well. So, yeah, lots of little hints here, Wyndham, and maybe if they can find something that has Rotundo. Hey, I like Queasy's idea of Mustafa Ali as the White Rabbit. I'm down with that. Heck yeah. Yeah, Vince deliberately extended contracts to keep certain talents from leaving. The situation with Tony Khan isn't the same. I'm sure there is situations that do exist, and there are going to be a situation and is going to be a situation in AEW where someone wants out and Tony is being stubborn and not letting them out when they should. I'm not saying those are never going to happen. It's just Ali and Roderick Strong is not the same thing as Buddy Matthews, Andrade, and Malachi Black. It's just not. Different scenarios. Every situation is different. Every release request doesn't have the same situation. Not every wrestler wants a release for the same reason. Every situation is different. There are different circumstances surrounding each and every release or issue or talent, and that's why you can't judge them all the same, because they're not the same. Crazy idea, I know. That's why that's all you see on Twitter. Well, what about this? I'm like, it's not the same. Like, there might be some similarities, but these aren't the exact same situations. And that's one of the biggest problems Twitter has, is thinking shit's the same that isn't. And like I said, I love that idea of like Cross and Scarlett and Dexter all, you know, forming the Firefly Funhouse again, or the Funhouse with Bray. That would be great. Reveal the White Rabbit with 1 minute left. Send the male models to NXT? No way. The male models are great. They're great. They're just, Max Dupree doesn't belong with them, but the male models gimmick itself is fucking fantastic. I just lumped all three together in WWE. Yeah, because their situations are similar. I'm trying to take similar situations. Malachi and and Andrade and Matthews are big stars in AEW. In WWE, you got smaller level stars. So, that's why I think if somebody like Fuego del Sol asked Tony Khan for a release, Tony Khan should give it to him. It's just different situations. But I do think Ali and Roderick have similar reasonings for their releases. And every person has different reasons, but sometimes you are going to have similar reasons. But the situations are different. They are different. They're not the exact same. And there's plenty of times when WWE is going to keep somebody that I'm going to say I don't blame them for keeping them. Like if fucking I don't know, just anybody. Bianca Belair told Triple H she wanted a release. I'm not releasing her either. I'm going to try to work it out with her. Let's work it out before we, go to a release. But I definitely think both companies, if you have somebody that you're not using, that's not going to affect your company in any way, that you almost forget is there half the time, and they want to release, you should not hold them hostage. If you're a bigger star making more money and you're more valuable to the company, then situations are going to be different. You just got to look at each situation differently. They're not all going to be the same. Some of them are going to be the same. Some of them are going to be different. That's just what you do in life. Same thing with me. I'm a boss. I have employees coming with me with problems all the time. And every situation is different. You just have to judge and handle each situation how they are. That's the way I look at it anyway. But I don't have much more time to talk about that. I got to get out of here now. I'm sorry for today's really discombobulated podcast. I've been rambling a lot. If you guys could help me out with the likes, probably the lowest likes account I've ever gotten on a Winged Eagle podcast. So if you can help me out with that, I would appreciate it. You guys have a great... No, I did not hear about Sasha Deshawn, and I don't even have time to. I got to get out of here now. But thank you again, everyone, for being here. I will catch you tomorrow night for WWE No Mercy 2002 Watch Along. That's going to be a blast. Make sure you're here, and we will catch you tomorrow night for that. Have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon or evening, depending on where you live, and we'll catch you